Welcome back to Inside the Factory. My name is Aaron. I'm joined by Harlan, who you know, as well as a couple of new guests. Ladies, maybe Rebecca first. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rebecca Richkes. I'm a director of experience design and I'm based in Boston.
My name is Ina Turchetti. I am a user researcher at Autodesk. I do not have any background in AEC. My background is in research. So you get people who come from the AEC industry and you get people who are like me, who are learning everything, but taking perspective from the outside view and to understand what we can do.
Thank you both. Today's topic is research, but I think we need to clarify what that means. Rebecca, could you tell me what do we mean by research in this context?
Yeah, in this context, this is really talking about what we have classically called user research, which is understanding who is using our product, how they're using our product, what kinds of needs they have. And it extends beyond just the direct users. It can also be the companies that are deciding to buy our product and things like that. And it's really focused on a deep understanding of who everyone is, what their jobs are, what their tasks are, what their goals are, and then transitioning from what their world is into how do we translate how they think about their work into our software so that our software can better match their needs and we can solve those problems. And then there's a separate set of research directly around that. So as we build things or as we plan to build things, we can actually test our ideas and again, do more research to understand if our ideas are going to hold up for solving the problems that we recognize that our customers are having. So I think that kind of generally covers what we're specifically thinking about for product-centered user research. We do have other parts of our company that do far future-looking research, like what's the world going to be like 30 years from now, and other areas of our company doing things like marketing research and understanding what messaging is resonating and things like that. But for this conversation, we're going to be focused on the product research.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Rebecca said that, as a product manager, we're actually kind of one of the major consumers of the research that Ina and Rebecca's teams do, because we're trying to make decisions from that information. And, they really help us understand different hypotheses we might have and actually validate and, get the information we need in order to make better decisions. So they're a huge part of our team, just as integral as our QA and developers, or even just designers working on features. Our research team is super important to what we work on and do every day.
All right, well, thank you both. So, Ina, maybe you could tell us a little bit more. What types of research do you do?
We do a huge variety type of research that addresses all kinds of questions for us. So we may test things that's already something that our customers use, and just to see how they're working today in their own working environment using their own project. And we also test things that's working in progress, and it could be something that's just being drawn out, what the user experience might look like, all the way to like beta, something that's already been coded. And in this phase, we're very much trying to understand, like, can customers use these features on their own without any problems? Do they understand the terminology? But also, are we providing any value to them? Like, is it addressing the actual problem they're facing? We also do research at to understand the big picture. Like, for example, we're not necessarily always looking at a specific feature or an experience per se, but we are just trying to understand how our customers do something today. And it could be like something like, how do people do structure analysis? What kind of tools they use? And that's not just, the Autodesk tools, but things that, our partners also provide our customers. And that help us understand the problem space we're in and what kind of solutions we may need to create to further the experience for our customers. We also look at vision things, things that maybe 10 years out, we're trying to see where our product needs to go, and to have understanding of that. So it's a huge variety.
Yeah, I would just add that there's a lot of things that we would call qualitative research, which are interviews with smaller numbers of people. And when you do that over a period of time, you can start to pull out themes. We also have opportunities to do quantitative research and see how many people are using certain functions or features or not using certain functions or features, as well as when we do like a larger scale survey, like we do our Revit satisfaction survey, which goes out to thousands and thousands of people. And so we balance the information that we get from individual people's stories and experiences with that wider view of what's happening. And that really helps not just our product managers, but all of our individual teams and our business leaders with decisions they need to make. And so we don't just research because we want to research, although it's a lot of fun to see what customers are doing and hear about what their day-to-day work is like. But we really do it to help inform the decisions that happen every day in our business.
It's a super critical part of our work because we're making decisions all the time, not just as product managers, but product owners, designers, even our software developers, even writing single lines of code, they're making decisions about how things work. And so we're constantly, I would say, bugging our research group to get more information, more data, more qualitative, quantitative information that we can leverage to help us make better informed decisions. Because I like to say we build Revit for everyone who's going to use it, not for just one or two or three or even the biggest companies. We're looking at it across the entire user base all the time, and we need you guys to actually do that work. So I'm grateful to have you guys. That's for sure.
So you talked a little bit about what we're talking about here in terms of research and how you execute it, but Ina, who do you research with?
So these include, architects, variety of engineers, BIM managers, technologists. Sometimes we branch over to the construction side and to understand what is the downstream of the design phase look like too. So it's really a huge variety of people that we do research with. Granted, we don't do enough interviews or live sessions or usability testing with people who don't speak English. We do surveys with people who speak other languages, and that's an area I would say that we can do better.
Any reactions to that, Harlan, Rebecca?
Well, one of the things I would add is it's important to know we're not always talking to just our existing Revit users either. We're trying to straddle a balance between people who don't use our software, who are using even 2D CAD drawing, by hand, all the way to people who are experts and actually using it, because we're trying to span the gauntlet of what problems people have in the industry. And that's a really important piece as well.
Yeah, I would build on that with the idea that we have so many different types of users who have different job roles in different types of companies on different projects. And so we'll really think about who is this project for, whose life is it supposed to make better, and make sure that we're talking to those specific users for that project. So if it's an MEP solution, we're not going to be talking to architects about what they think about the MEP solution. We're going to be talking to mechanical engineers or electrical engineers, depending on who it's for. And so we really do talk to a broad swath of users because our different projects are serving many different people for what their needs are.
I'll say I've experienced exactly that. When I was a customer through the beta program through feedback, when I was a partner participating in similar activities, but also kind of having an inside look and a little bit of what's now called inside the factory experience, and then of course even at Autodesk, I guess once you're known internally for what you bring to the table from an experience perspective, then sometimes you're sought out for interviewing certain features. But I appreciate that because I might have strong feelings about how I wanted this to work when I was in industry. And so I have an opportunity to share those feelings at times. Ina, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, I thought Rebecca added a really good point. And, one of the key things that we focus on is, when we're looking at the experience of a specific feature that addresses a specific problem, that the people we target for those research are not decision makers, even though we're, mostly a business to business company. And we're very focused on recruiting the people who are day-to-day users of that particular feature, and to understand if that adds value to them, if they can use it on their own. And that's very important to us to make sure we get the right people to do those research.
Yeah, yes. And I would also say that you made a good point earlier about the global user, because, being in in Texas and having worked across the US when I was in sales, we tend to have this, America-centric view of the customer, and, obviously the customers feel that they should be the most important wherever they are. But it's a good perspective to have, to understand this is a global company. We're trying to develop solutions that work across the world and not simply for one region.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that just thinking about all the people that we've talked to, all the people we talk to regularly, we have so many different Scrum teams who are regularly talking to customers for the projects they're working on. And I just feel so fortunate that we have so many people that are willing to spend their time talking to us about our products. And just thank you to everyone, because you help make our products better. And we really appreciate your time and dedication. And it's just really exciting to get a chance to hear from you, talk to you. When people fill out surveys, often in the world, people just write a sentence or two if they write anything at all. And we get these big, long texts of like all of the different things that people want to see better. And we do read those. So thank you very much for both your time and energy on that.
Nobody wants anything better. They're just thanking you for the gift of all this you've ever done for them.
We get some of those too.
Okay, well then let's talk about proving it. So Rebecca, what do you do with all of those results? What do you do with all that feedback?
We actually use it through all our parts of the process. So I've actually been at Autodesk for many, many years, and I've been down at the lowest level of just doing day-to-day work, helping the developers, up to conversations with leadership about what's next for our future. And we use research in all of those kinds of conversations. And so when we're thinking about an area to break into for the business, we look at research for what are the opportunities, where are the pain points people are having, because that's often shows where there's an opportunity. When we've decided on an area or we know we need to serve a market better, we do research to understand what are people doing now, where do they want help, and start to do that. And that's kind of the problem framing part. And then when we've figured out which problem we're solving, as we come up with ideas, we brainstorm possible ways to solve it, and we'll get feedback on those possible ways. So when we finally start to develop it, then we have to check our own assumptions and test it with people. And that can be something that we do as a usability test, which is having people walk through a task to make sure they can do it. We'll ask them if they're satisfied with the solution, if they find it valuable. When we put things into the preview release, for example, that's another way that we get research input in terms of hearing what people are getting hung up on, or if they're finding that they want something more. So there's just many different ways that we bring it into our process. And then what it does is it helps guide our decisions. So if, for example, we've done a usability study and we've had people do 6 different tasks, and 4 of them, everybody finished really fast, no problem, didn't need any help, got it done. And 2 of them, only half the people finished and it took them a really long time. That tells us there's something wrong in the design and something wrong in how we've implemented it, and that people currently can't use it. So we actually spend time to fix it. So we do those kinds of tests to help us make our solutions better.
Like Rebecca said, we use it all the time throughout the entire workflow, and even not just on the product side, but on the strategy side. So we use research to help define, 2, 3, 5-year, 10-year vision work that we're doing about, where are we taking the product? Because not only are we, we're not designing and building that stuff in a vacuum. We're actually, going and talking to business owners, accounts, down to people using the tools every day, and really getting that information and feeding it into that process so that we know what our direction is. And like Rebecca said, trying to feed that all the way down to the nitty-gritty detail of, naming a button in the experience, or a checkbox, what terminology should we use to, should we invest in this outside area and leverage this technology here? Is that where the industry is going? So it's a huge gauntlet, and it literally happens every day, all the time.
Yeah, maybe that'll be a follow-up discussion at another point in time, Harlan, around pivoting and planning and what the development cycle actually looks like from a strategic view all the way down to execution.
Yeah, Aaron, that's such a good point, because because it's happening all the time. As a product manager, I'm never right. Let's put it that way. Like I have this mug on my desk that I use with our teams all the time, and I pull it up. I don't have it with me now because it's actually back in the office where I'm not there. And it says, your opinion, and it's talking to me, my opinion, is interesting but irrelevant. And that's really a mindset that we have, is that it's not about any one person's opinion here. It's about what is the collective information that we're gathering, because my assumptions, even as a PM, and I've been doing this for a while and been in the industry and support, sometimes are way off. And based on what people say, I'll say something in a demo or talking to a customer, and they might agree with half of it, might not agree with the other half. And, putting those two together and getting more input is super critical to our process.
Yeah. So with that in mind, Ina, how do our listeners get involved if they want to provide feedback, whether it's to Revit or any of the Autodesk, product research group?
Yeah, so the main area where our customers can go to join is the Autodesk Product Research Community, and it's literally autodeskproductresearch.com, where you can sign up to be part of it. In this community, where when we have a research activity, that we will sort of look up the profiles of the people who join to understand, sort of the product you use, the industry you work in, and some of the specific tasks that you might do. So we'll make sure you're a target user for the research we're doing. And then you may get like a survey, you may get a forum discussion where you also get to hear what some of the other customers are saying or how they answer the question, which is really interesting. And then you may participate in like what Rebecca said, usability test of work in progress, sprint demos, which you get to talk to the Scrum team about the work they're doing, I think every 2 weeks. But you may also get asked to do interviews to just understand the general way that you solve certain problems, the problems you face. That's like the one place I would say that go join the product community and be part of it. And we do have another one, which is the preview release. I don't know, Harley, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we have our preview release, which is, you may have heard the term beta, and other products have run a beta. It's basically our beta program where you can actually download every month a new version of Revit is made available to try to see what we're working on and actually give us feedback in that capacity. And they're separate kind of things at the end of the day, but there's a lot of overlap between both things. A lot of the same conversations are happening. And Rebecca, do you want to talk a little bit about the difference?
We are really wanting to make sure that our preview release is focused on this in-progress work. The intention is that there's software that's built, and we want feedback because we can make changes right now for what's getting built. And so the Scrum teams are really focused on getting the feedback on having customers actually try it, use it, put data in there, play with it, and really, just use it as you want to. And that's the great benefit to preview release. I think for the product research community, there's an opportunity there to sort of drop into conversations and provide input on some of the things we're thinking about for the future, or some design ideas we have about a possible solution. Maybe answer some quick questions about how you currently work, because that will help us with the next steps of our design process. And so I think some of those conversations are a little more likely to happen in the Autodesk product research community.
Yeah, and they kind of work hand in hand, right? I mean, that's the intention on our side, is they're not standalone things. We're actually working together on both.
Yeah, I was thinking of it as a continuum where on the front end, it's kind of what might be or what should be, versus once you get to a preview release, it's like what, may be coming sooner, what will be, it's as it moves along towards being realized. One last question from a customer perspective, would the customers hear from each other in these, forums? Will they get feedback from Autodesk if they participate? What will they get out of it?
Yeah. So, increasingly we hear from our customers, whether, after they participate in a research session, they're curious, like, okay, what's going on with what I said? Like, what did other people say? Like, what are you doing with the feedback? So we have started to share back some of these impact. Back with our customers, we started off with AU last year, and it was a really huge hit because customers can actually see that we are taking the feedback seriously. And because of those feedback, here are the changes we made. And a lot of them are already in product and customers see it happen. We're going to do it again this year at AU, so you see more of that. But we're also trying to share back more throughout the year as things happen. Obviously, there are things like we can't really share due to intellectual property, and we definitely don't share what a particular customer is doing in terms of their workflows and the tips and tricks they have figured out. But we do share the kind of impact our customer feedback has made. Right now, we are primarily sharing these in the product research community. So if you want to hear more about them, that's also another reason to join that community.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think that being close to our customers is really part of what we strive for at Autodesk. And it's part of our company culture to be a customer company. And one of the ways that we know that we can do better is by doing that sharing back. But one of the ways that we already take it into account is in addition to having so many of our team members regularly speaking with customers, even internally when we share quarterly what our teams have been doing, where our teams are now sharing, these are the insights we gained from speaking to customers or looking at analytics or having direct interviews or surveys. And here's what decisions we've made because of that. And so we're really working on those muscles of making sure not only do we do the listening, but we reflect back and then make decisions because of that. And so the next step of that is really just what Ina talked about, which is sharing even more publicly, or in the case of the sort of NDA wall, with a wider group. Here are some of the decisions and the impacts that you've made. So we're excited to do more of that in the future.
I wanted to add that, I have worked at a variety of industries and different companies doing research on different type of subjects. And I have to say, when Autodesk says we are a customer company, they really, really mean it. And I worked, at a number of companies that said they are a customer company as well, but no one has taken it seriously as, Autodesk. And that is music to my ears as a researcher. And I'm just really happy that not only we have such a strong support to get customer feedback, but also just super appreciative of our customers who are so eager to share. Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was a pretty good summary statement. I'll ask if Harlan and Rebecca, if you have any other final thoughts on that.
Keep signing up for our communities and our preview release and our product research community. Keep giving feedback. We never get tired of it, really. And I'll echo something I said back in the our first session maybe of ITF sessions, which is feedback's a gift. We really view it that way. We want that engagement, and we want to have these conversations with your customers to get better.
And I would just add another profuse thank you, because we recognize that it takes time to provide us feedback, and it takes energy to think about what you want to say and share those thoughts. And we also understand that so many of you spend all of your time in our products, and that is very meaningful to me. I regularly, if I'm telling my aunt what I'm doing as my job, I talk about the fact that making one little thing better can improve somebody's life by a lot, because it saves them 30 seconds, but they do that thing hundreds of times in a week. And those are the kinds of things where we recognize that in addition to sort of big new features and splashy things, those little improvements make a difference. And so we really appreciate hearing from you all what kinds of things we can do better and what should be better in the products.
Well, thank you, Harlan, Rebecca, Ina. Thanks to all the folks that are watching or listening. Sign up at AutoDeskProductResearch.com and send us your feedback at revitfeedback@autodesk.com on this session or anything that's on your mind. Thanks.